Hi, I'm Cassie Erickson with Woodland Senior Care. I know that when you're navigating trying to find senior living for a loved one, there's a lot of information coming at you. So the goal of this presentation is to help demystify and help explain some of the process, get you up to date with some of the vocabulary that you'll hear, and really give you the information you need to start thinking about making the best decision. So first off, whenever I start a conversation with somebody, we start off talking about medical needs, and that's great, that's important. But the other thing we need to talk about is care needs, because yes, the person has a medical condition, but the reason that they need to move is because they need care. So what we find is there's two categories of care needs. There's instrumental activities of daily living and activities of daily living. And together those make up what we call custodial care. And that's what most people receive in an assisted living or memory care facility. Instrumental activities of daily living are things like transportation, managing the home, getting the light bulbs changed, shopping for groceries, doing the bills, and managing medication. Activities of daily living, those are the more hands-on needs. Things like help with personal hygiene, bathing, dressing, grooming, even using the toilet or cleaning up after yourself if someone's incontinent or needs help. Medical care is still available, but there's a line that you need to understand. Each facility will have a community nurse, and the job of that community nurse is to interpret the orders that are given by another provider. That nurse cannot, by law, make new orders. So if they come to give you your medicine and you say, oh gosh, I'd really rather take half a pill, the instructions they've got say you're taking a whole pill because that's the instruction that the doctor provided. So they're really bound by following those instructions. Each facility generally has a third-party practitioner that rounds at the facility, and they can give some additional orders, like say you have an infection or have something small that needs to be treated. Most people still see an outside provider, maybe their cardiologist, their neurologist, some sort of specialist. You may or may not see a primary care physician because you might be getting the care you need from the primary care perspective from that third-party physician that rounds at the facility. But then lastly, there's the caregiver. Caregivers are delegated by the community nurse to take care of some functions. By law, there are certain functions that a caregiver can do as long as it's under the direction of a nurse. And then between the community nurse, the third-party physician, and the outside physicians that are being seen, and the caregiver, that whole package makes up for the safety net of medical care that a person receives in a facility. Now there are two facility models. There's the social model and then there's the care model. So if you're driving down the road and you see a big, beautiful building with a fountain out front and it's just big and swanky, that's probably a more social facility. Probably what you'll see inside is several apartments. If it's assisted living, those apartments will have, generally a place to sleep. Oftentimes a kitchenette, will not have a stove or oven or dishwasher, but they're individual apartments. And then there's places that you might not always even know are there that are more focused on people who have high care needs. So think about this for a minute. If you are in a position where you really need help, say you're very ill and you might need help on an unpredictable basis, do you want to be at the big social facility where a caregiver is scheduled to come and check on you every 4 hours? Or do you want to be at a smaller facility where you can actually get care on demand? That people notice if you're struggling, people notice if you are needing help. So that's the difference between the social model and the care model. So oftentimes what I see when I see somebody who's unhappy at their current facility and then they call me because they need to move, it's not that the facility is bad, it's that the facility is not capable of meeting their needs because it's not designed to. Usually what happens is they've chosen a social place because they didn't know the other places exist. So along this spectrum from very social to very high care needs, starting on the social side, we've got independent living. Now even within independent living, there's a spectrum of levels of support, but some definite lines that you need to know about are that independent facilities cannot assist with those activities of daily living, things like bathing, dressing, grooming, and they can't assist with medication management either. Now, residents may age in place at the facility. They may be able to stay there all the way up through end of life as long as those needs are being met. So sometimes people who are living in independent living and their care needs start to increase will bring in a third-party caregiver to help them to stay in that independent living facility if they don't want to move. Moving a little further down on the spectrum are the larger assisted living facilities. Those are like a cruise ship on land. They're the big, beautiful apartment buildings. Those are very social in nature. They're licensed by the state as either a type A or a type B facility. We can talk about that. There's meals, housekeeping, and social opportunities that are providing. But here they can actually help you with things like medication management and activities of daily living. Now, generally at those large places though, you pay a base amount for your rent, and then you pay an additional amount for care on top of that. Next, we'll talk about the smaller format of assisted living facilities. Those are also licensed as a type A or type B. They might be a purpose-built facility, or they might be a residential home that's been converted. And in those facilities, rooms and bathrooms might be private or they might be shared. And these are actually great places for residents who have very high care needs. Sometimes they follow the model of base rent plus additional fee for care, or sometimes they follow an all-inclusive rate, but they're designed to help people all the way through end of life. Now, in memory care, we have the same distinction as we have in assisted living with large facilities and small facilities. So for my people who need to move a lot or who are pretty independent but they need the safety of a memory care, a large facility might be really great. It's licensed as a type B facility as well, can help with things like medication management and activities of daily living, and it can give them a safe place to still be social and still move around without the risk of getting out or being dangerous. There's also some smaller memory care facilities that can be great for people who have stronger cognitive needs. Maybe people who have had what we call behaviors. Maybe they're acting out a bit. These smaller facilities are more able to meet the people where they are as far as their needs and make sure that their needs are being met so that they don't escalate to exhibiting behaviors that would be a problem for the resident or others in the facility. Lastly, we have skilled nursing. A common assumption is that many people believe that they're going to have to live in skilled nursing at some point. And while skilled nursing might be a stop that many people make after the hospital, long-term stays in skilled nursing are generally not necessary unless the person has a tracheostomy or a brand new feeding tube. Otherwise, even the most complex of needs can often be met in a licensed type B facility, such as a small assisted living facility. Now, we do have special considerations for residents who are living with dementia. The first thing I want everyone to understand is that a cognitive diagnosis doesn't automatically mean memory care. Now, the state does have requirements for an Alzheimer's certification. However, those requirements probably aren't going to knock your socks off. There's a pretty minimal training requirement, and then there's a requirement that the facility be locked. So for a lot of my people who have a cognitive challenge, but who are also wheelchair bound or not actively seeking an exit, they can be really happy in a small assisted living facility, have their needs met, and not need to go to memory care. We really do look at how the disease is presenting and how it's progressing. Some people are pleasantly confused, some people are exhibiting more aggression or anxiety. So we really do have to look at the specific situation and make the right decision for the person. Now, the line, if you will, between memory care and assisted living is that if somebody is exit seeking, truly looking to get out the door, they're not going to be okay in an unlocked facility. They're not going to need to be in a locked facility. And then if they're starting to exhibit some of those behaviors that we've talked about, if there's any violence, anything like that, they're most likely going to need to go to memory care instead of staying in an assisted living facility. So when you're thinking of what to do for your loved one, I've got some rules that I think people should live by. The biggest rule, the thing that I see the most often, is that you really do need to meet your person where they are. It is so hard, and I know this from experience, so I'm telling you, it is so hard when your parent has a difficult diagnosis. It's hard to picture the strong person that took care of you now unable to take care of themselves. But there's nothing more beautiful than getting them the help they need. And although many of us, myself included, experience some level of denial, what our parents need from us right now is for us to meet them where they are, understand what's going on for them, and get them care that's appropriate for where they're at in their journey. Also, read the regulatory reports on any facility you're considering. I know I provide those to every one of my clients, and if there's anything on any given report, I will walk through that with you. But reading and understanding what happens with the state inspections is really key. Finally, don't expect a one and done move. Now, I'm guilty of this. I moved my dad to assisted living, partly because I loved his assisted living, that particular facility, and then partly because I knew where the next step was gonna be. I knew that they had a memory care on site, and my plan was always for him to move right into that memory care. But what happened was, the way my dad was exhibiting and the health changes that he had, plus the fact that there were no rooms available, caused me to need to look outside of that facility when it came time that he could no longer live in assisted living. And the place I found for him was so much better than if we had just gone on autopilot and moved directly from assisted living to memory care at that facility. Follow your gut. If something feels like it's off, listen to that. No place is going to be perfect, but if something feels like it's just really not right, follow your gut. Finally, give yourself some grace. Caregiving is so hard, and this is one of the most difficult things that you will ever do. So show yourself some grace throughout the process. Now, after learning everything about independent living, assisted living, and memory care, a lot of people are wondering, how am I going to pay for this? First of all, long-term care in an assisted living or a memory care facility is not covered by Medicare. Some of my clients have long-term care policies, although what I'm seeing is that it's the older policies that were really good, and the newer policies don't tend to be as beneficial for my people. What I see for most of my private pay clients is that they're using their retirement benefits, their investments, or the proceeds from the sale of their home to pay for their care in an assisted living facility. Now, when care is needed but funds are not available, there are some facilities that accept Medicaid, so that could be an option if the person qualifies both medically and financially.